What is a hero? A mythological figure, often of divine descent, endowed with great strength or ability? An illustrious warrior? No. It's a person admired for achievements and noble qualities, one who shows great courage. Welcome to the What's a Hero podcast, where we dive deep into what a hero is and what makes them that hero. I'm your host, Ken Frownnfelter, and I'm going to be introducing you to some of the world's most likely and unlikely heroes. You may have never heard of them before, and they most likely have never met you. But they all have one thing in common. They are ready to do whatever it takes to help make you better, even if it means sacrificing everything for you. Let's get into it.
This is episode 85 of the What's a Hero podcast with me, Ken Frownnfelter. The guest speaker was most likely in his early 70s, yet well preserved. He was mild-mannered in appearance and far too intellectual for a missionary who had spent his past 30 years spreading the gospel in the wilds of Africa. I had pictured him weather-beaten and rough. My expectations had probably been swayed by childhood fantasies of Rudyard Kipling and Edgar Rice Burroughs. I welcomed the opportunity to escape the humdrum drawl of rural southern Oregon, to venture beyond the mundane into the endless reaches of the exotic, where grassy plains watered by the runoff from Mount Kilimanjaro provided life to scattered herds of giraffes and zebras. My hopes were dashed when the missionary announced, "I had planned to speak about Africa, but God wants me to talk about unforgiveness." I was dismayed at first, but I quickly dismayed my disappointment. If God wanted to address unforgiveness, then someone needed to hear it, but certainly not me. I held no grudges. The missionary cleared his throat and began. Unforgiveness can keep you from reaching your full potential. It can stunt your mental, spiritual, and even your physical growth. Unforgiveness can keep you from becoming what God intended for you to be. It can be passed down through families, with each generation worse than the one that preceded it, and it has led to the destruction and downfall of entire nations. He took a sip from a glass of water on the pulpit and continued, "Here in America, we have what we call dysfunctional families. The root cause of this dysfunction is, you guessed it, unforgiveness, and most commonly divorce." He asked for a show of hands from people who had been divorced. From the second row on the far left, where my wife and I were seated, I glanced around the sanctuary, my eyes fastened on the third, fourth, and fifth rows across the aisle, where the fabulous 40s and the 50s groups sat. They were older, married couples within the church, a close-knit bunch of friends who golfed, bowled, hiked, and went on picnics together. Most of them were transplants who had sold small houses in California for outrageous amounts and retired to Oregon, where their equity could afford mansions. I didn't mean to be judgmental, but every hand within the group was lifted, and I was astounded. The missionary stepped down from the platform and centered himself in front of the far aisle where the hands had been raised. He continued with, "The best way to forgive someone who has offended you is to speak to that person face to face. In some cases, the offender has passed away, and forgiving them may be a little more difficult. Wives, this may not go over well with your husbands, but you need to sit down with your ex over a cup of coffee and talk without your husband present. In some cases, this may not be possible because there are some people that you just can't talk to. If you can talk to your ex, then you must be careful not to accuse or start an argument. You should also make it clear that it's about forgiveness, not reconciliation. Husbands, this may not go over well with your wife, but you may need to sit down with your ex in order to forgive them, and they may need to forgive you as well." He paused and turned, cocking his head as if a strange odor had filled the air. Raising the index finger on his right hand, he followed it across the front of the church, exclaiming as he walked, "It may not be an ex-husband or an ex-wife at all." When he reached the empty chair in front of me, he turned again and leaned across it. Placing his index finger in front of my nose, he exclaimed, "It could be that girl who dumped you for another guy 19 years ago." I nearly swallowed my tongue. I knew exactly what he was talking about, and I knew that he could not have known about that by any natural means. An irritating numbness gripped me, a throbbing agony mysteriously devoid of the pain that it seemed to need in order to be valid, coursed through my body. Sweat welled on my forehead. Before I knew it, the missionary was gone, back to the other side of the church, where he resumed preaching. His sermon seemed distant, his words unintelligible. My wife leaned toward me and uttered, "Maybe you should call her. Sit down and talk with her." Her advice struck me like a kick to the head when I was already down. "Oh yeah, that'll go over like a lead balloon, won't it?" I snapped, baffled that my wife would ever vouch for such a thing. And then I added in a softer tone, "If I do, I'll spare you the details." I wiped the sweat from my forehead and struggled mentally for answers. The missionary couldn't have known anything about my life. It had to be a God thing, and since it was a God thing, I had to act on it. And that is the foreword from a book called When Hindsight is 30/30 by a man named Sam Welch. And this is actually a book that I hadn't been interested in or knew anything about. Had my wife not brought it home after she went to a conference and said the guy's story was so powerful, she bought his book, which was cool. She got it signed by him and everything like that. And the book it's a fascinating read about this guy who was accused of murder, who was ousted from Navy SEAL training. He's threatened by Union goons and shadowed by Meryl Streep. And his incredible story of love, loss, and forgiveness that he lays out here. But unfortunately, I don't have Sam Welch on the show today. But I do have a guest today, though, who is a police officer. He's been there, done that. He's one of those guys. When he was introduced to me, I was told that he's an all-around badass and a great guy. That was the exact thing that said on my text message that I said. He was met. The gentleman that introduced us met him at the TACFLO Academy and at the Arizona Tactical Officers Association. And he says he's done it all. NARCs, motors, SWAT, anti-smuggling, instruction, ATOA board, or an ATOA board member, subject matter expert. It's been pretty cool seeing him rise through the ranks all the way up to deputy chief of Pinal County Sheriff's Office. He's an expert on Mexican cartels and border issues. His book, Interceptors, The Untold Fight Against the Mexican Cartels, just launched before the holidays, and it's a great read. And so I'd like to introduce you guys to Chief Matthew Thomas, to the What's a Hero podcast. How are you doing, sir?
Doing well, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for coming on. This is absolutely an honor to have you come on. I mean, I know you're a busy man. You have a ton of stuff, but I mean, I'm looking forward to our conversation over the next however long. So
yeah, no, it's cool. And I paid that guy to give me that introduction to hype me up. He's my hype man.
He's your hype man. If not, he's going to be that guy that's going to be in front of you every time. Give it up, whoop whoop, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So you've been a police officer for how long?
April will be my 30th year.
Wow, man. Yeah. So that, and usually you get cops that are guys, they're cops for, 20, 25 years or something like that. To find the one that's been doing it 30 years, those are the guys that you've obviously found your calling. This is the thing that you figured this is what you're doing and who you are, huh?
Yeah, this has been it, man. And it's went by fast, to be honest. Because I'm on a 20-year retirement, so I could have retired when I hit my 20. But 20 came so fast, and I was still having fun and doing cool stuff. So I just kept trucking, man. And then as I went along and moved into this position, it's went by super fast with, the infamous Sheriff Lamb. He's my boss, and he promoted me into his number two. And, man, the last 6 years have been a whirlwind. It's just been fast. And so I had 24 years on when I took this spot. And, yeah, it's crazy how fast it goes by. It really is. And 30 years seems like a lot when you say it. And I guess it has been a long time, because there's dudes that I work with that weren't born yet when I started, which is so weird.
Yeah. I was just talking to a guy today that I work with, and he's the same age as my son. I'm like, what are you doing? What the heck? This is super funny.
Yeah.
So let's go back. Let's go back in time and how'd you grow up? Who'd you grow up with? Who were you as a little kid? What was your deal? What was your thing that you liked?
Man, I was all over the place. It was a very unique upbringing, because my grandparents, they met in World War II, and after the war was over, they moved to Phoenix, Arizona, because we had some relatives that were kind of sprinkled throughout from Texas all the way to California. So they ended up in Phoenix, Arizona. And my grandfather was a mechanic in the Army. And when he got out, he started up a four-wheel drive shop here in Arizona. And it was one of the like go-to shops, right? And so he wanted to move to the outskirts of Phoenix at the time. So he moved way down by a mountain called South Mountain, which is in South Phoenix, or which became South Phoenix. And so he grew up down in that area, or, had a house down in that area. And I grew up, got a house down there. My mom, my dad, my aunts and uncles, they all grew up down in that area. And it turned from the outskirts of Phoenix into the Phoenix proper. And as time went on, it became South Phoenix, and it became pretty rough. But my grandfather had like a compound. They had, acreage. And while we were in the middle of the city, it was like this compound. And when my mom had me, she was very determined to make it on her own. So my dad left at a very young age. I want to say I was 4 or 5 when my dad took off. And so had a single mom. We were living in Section 8 housing, and we were only a couple miles away from my grandparents. And my grandparents were pretty much like my parents. So my mom, she would work nights. I'd stay with my grandparents. And so I'd bounce back and forth between these two cultures, because on my mom's side of the family, Appalachian Americans, man, they're from way back there. And so I had the hillbilly side of the family and my white side of the family. And I grew up in a neighborhood that was predominantly Mexican. And so I grew up with all Mexicans in Section 8 housing. And so I was immersed in both cultures back and forth, which made for a pretty cool upbringing, because I learned how to hunt, fish, do all that kind of stuff. But I also learned all about gangs and the Mexican culture. And so that was kind of my upbringing all the way up into my high school years. And it was getting pretty rough around there. I had a couple friends that had already been in shootings and been arrested and getting involved in gang stuff. So my mom wanted to get us out of there, get me out of there specifically before anything like that happened, because it's very easy to dip your toe into that world and then get caught up, and pretty soon you're locked up in prison.
Yeah.
So we moved. It was my sophomore year. We moved out to a small town outside of Phoenix on the outskirts. It was a small farming town, predominantly Hispanic. So I was in my culture. I understood it. That's where I finished out high school. That's where I met my wife. And all through high school in the summertime, we would work the fields. So I worked right alongside the migrants in the potato fields and in what they called the fruit shed, where they would harvest fruits, clean them, and all that kind of stuff. And so worked alongside migrants and stuff in my summertime, went to school and graduated. And I had no idea what I wanted to do when I grew up. I was out of high school for a few months, and my mom's like, "You got to figure it out." So I started, just working odd jobs here and there. And then me and my girlfriend at the time, who is now my wife, she ends up pregnant, and I'm 19, she's 19. And I'm like, man, I gotta do something
Gotta
right.
figure something out.
These,
Yeah.
yeah, these odd jobs aren't going to work. And I always had an affinity for law enforcement and military. Um, and so that's where I started, man. I
Where'd
started
that come from?
applying.
Where'd that come from?
I think that's from my grandparents, really, because my grandpa was my male role model, no
Uh-huh.
doubt. My whole life growing up, and he was a hardcore Texan, World War II vet. When they say greatest generation, man, there's no lie. He was like the toughest dude I ever knew growing
Mm.
up, and just a I watched him as a young man. I watched his character. I watched the camaraderie from the dudes he went to war with, and
Mhm.
and all the way till they all died. They were just buddies to the end, and they would,
Brothers, right?
yeah, and
Yeah.
so I think it was that, and then. Growing up in a high crime neighborhood, dude, I was kind of exposed to cops. So, you get to
Yeah.
know,
Yeah, you weren't
you get
getting
to know
busted by him, but
cops.
now what did you were you athletic? Did you do anything like that? Did you go outside and play all the time? Were you just sit on the couch and eat?
No, no, I was a sports guy. I was always outside, man. If I was at my grandparents' house, like I said, they had acreage, so I would be out on the back acreage. My grandpa had an old Benjamin pellet gun, and he'd let me go hunt birds. So I'd go out on his acreage and hunt birds, or I would go out, set up army men and have a little war, and do
Nice.
that kind of stuff. And then when I was on the other side, at home in the other neighborhood, um, soccer was the thing. So we'd play soccer or we'd play street baseball. But I was in a soccer league, so I played soccer with all my friends that I grew up with. And then, of course, at school, you play all the school sports. So I'd play football, I'd play basketball, baseball. But baseball and soccer became my two main sports.
Mm.
Kind of focused on those, and yeah, I played those all the way through high school. Then when I got to high school, basketball and football became my two. Those were my jam, and yeah, those were my kind of my sports growing up.
And did you have any idea what you wanted to do growing up? Did you sit there and say, hey, I'm interested in being a plumber or whatever? I don't know.
Dude, I actually thought I wanted to get into sports medicine, believe it or not, because I loved sports, and I thought that's a cool way to stay involved because I had no illusions about being a pro sport player or anything.
Right.
But I thought that would be a cool way to stay in it, and all the way through high school, I thought sports medicine, sports medicine. But like I said, when I got out of high school, I really didn't plan properly. And so senior year sneaks up on you. All of a sudden, I'm graduated from high school and I'm facing the real world without a plan. And the Marine Corps was actually, Marine Corps was an option. And I had looked into that option. And I know this is going to surprise some of the people out there, but me and my recruiter got into a fight. And so
Really?
not a like physical fight. We got into a fight because I at the time the Army was doing 2-year contracts, and so I went into the Marine Corps recruiting spot, and I was like, "Hey, dude, I want to sign up for the Marines, and I want to do 2 years like the Army does." And he's like, "Roger that, man. We got you. Yeah, let's start filling out some paperwork." Cool. So I'm doing all my paperwork and stuff, and I go home and I tell my mom, "Hey, I'm going to go to the Marines," and she's kind of like, "Really?" Yeah, that I'm already talking to the guy, got everything lined up, and I need you to go, go with me, and I'm going to go do my swearing in and all that. And so it was the night before that my recruiter calls me, and we're talking over everything, and they're locking you in, make sure you're going to show up in the morning and stuff. And,
Right.
he's like, yeah. So 4 years, and then you'll have your 2 years after. And I'm like, whoa, what? Wait, no, dude, we were talking about 2 years, like the Army. And he's like, well, we don't do 2 years, we do 4. It's a 4-year commitment. And of course, as an 18-year-old, right, 4 years sounds so long,
Right.
compared to 2 years. So we get in a back and forth, and I'm like, no, dude, you fucking lied to me, man. I said, and I know that's going to surprise people that a recruiter lied, right? And he's like, well, you're already fucked. You get your ass down here. And sorry for the language, but this is what he was giving me. So he just goes off on me on the phone and tells me I'm already committed and all this. And I was like, bullshit, dude. I said, I already know, what I'm doing. And I'm not fully committed. I just partially committed. Tomorrow, if I'd have showed up, then I'd been all in.
Right.
And I told him, I'm not showing up, dude. I'm not going. And I said, because you're full of shit and you lied to me. And I hung up on him, and that was the end of my Marine Corps career.
Jeez. No, I had a recruiter on as a guest one time, and she was saying, "Oh yeah, you'd be surprised, but they don't always tell you the truth."
Yeah.
they try, but yeah, and it didn't matter. It doesn't matter to the branch, you know.
Right.
They've got a quota to try to fill.
So I still flirted with the idea, but again, I was a dumb 18-year-old and I was trying to figure it out. And I really didn't want to be anything in the military other than a Marine. And 4 years just seemed so long at that point of my life. Because I did actually, at that time, I was like, I want to do 2 years. I want to get out and I want to go into law enforcement. And, that was kind of what I knew my path was going to be. And so I had no give on my timeline. And, it ended up, and ultimately the decision ended up with me having a wife and a kid, because had I gone to the Marine Corps, my wife and I would have not started dating, and I wouldn't, have the beautiful family that I have. So
yeah, that's a God thing right there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So obviously you can't be a cop until you're 21. What'd you do between 18 and 21?
So 18, 21 was odd jobs, man. I mostly worked there was a chemical plant in the small town that I worked at, was like a soap place, blending all these chemicals together to make soaps for big linen companies and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I worked there most of the time between 18 and 20. And it was towards the end it was probably halfway through my 19th year when, I had to get onto something bigger and better. And that's when I started applying. And then when I was 20 is when I got hired on by the county. And I started in detention. So I worked in our jail and worked in the jail for just about a year. And then went what we call going out to the road to become a deputy out on the road.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Most places that I know where I work, our sheriff's department, that's what they call it. Going to be a road deputy or whatever, you can be a jail deputy, whatever the case may be. But
right.
So while you were in the jail, were you just jonesing? I want to be out there. I want to be out there. Or were you sitting and you're like, hey, no, I'm biding my time. This is cool. I mean, even though you were a little bit younger than you were allowed to be out there, but.
Right. Yeah. At first it was because it was all new to me.
Yeah.
I would say my first 6 months, I was just taking it all in, learning as much as I could. And I really wasn't worried about what was next. I was just trying to learn what I was doing.
Do what they told you.
And yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that learning the whole structure, right? Because it's a paramilitary structure. So learning all of that, learning the rank system, which, believe it or not, coming from a gang culture, it actually translates over because there's hierarchies there too. So, you kind of already know how that functions in growing up like in that environment. Yeah. So, I just did my time in there. And then I think it was about the 6 month mark that I was like, yeah, I don't see myself staying in here for my whole career. Mm-hmm. And so I wanted, and you have some exposure to deputies and stuff. And so I was like, yeah, it's time to go.
So that you get out on the road and you're doing it now. And you're where you want to be. Is that right?
Right.
And you realize this is exactly what I was hoping it would be. Is that kind of attitude?
Yeah, it was definitely the academy was cool. Get out of the academy, you're on FTO, and it's kind of the same thing, right? When you're first on FTO, you're just kind of like, oh my God, everything's so new. You're learning so much. The first car you ever pull over, you're just shaking in your boots because you don't want to mess it up, and B, you could die possibly. So you're there's so much pressure.
Yeah, they've drilled it into your head for the academy and everything like that. Yeah,
I had my it was something else. Right. So but I knew, once I got about halfway through my FTO, I was like, good Lord, just let me go on my own and let me start doing this work. Because I was jonesing at that point. And then when I got off FTO, man, I just hit it and I didn't look back. And I saw real quickly in the law enforcement world. I looked around, and this is not to dog anybody, but I looked around and I'm like, I can outwork all these dudes, and because I saw what people were doing and how they worked and what their drive was and their work ethic. And I was like, man, I'm going to work harder than any of these people, and I'm always going to be at the top. And so I just started running, man. And I just wanted to put bad guys in jail and save the world. Just
Right.
I was a brand new cop. They gave me a car to take home, use their gas, and nice shiny badge and a gun, and said go save the world. So I was all about it.
What year was this? What are we looking at?
That would have been 95 when I finally got out of the academy and hit the road.
No, okay. And so you're doing that. You got new baby at home. I guess at this point you're 2 or 3 years old, right?
Yeah,
he's about 2 or 3 years old. And you and your wife are doing everything you need to do, and you're just you're regular road deputy. But are you looking at were you seeing the signs of any other things? Were you specialty assignments or narcotics or investigations or anything like that, or were you just like, I'm happy where I'm at?
So probably the first year I was just kind of like, I'm happy where I'm at. But again, I was going full speed. I was always looking for information. I would find schools that I could get into for free, or I would maneuver my way into the schools to learn as much as I could, about cop stuff, gang stuff, dope stuff, whatever. So I was just a sponge that first year. And then kind of what I saw through that first year is that I wanted to get somewhere where I could go after bad guys, not just respond to calls and sometimes deal with bad guys. I wanted to actively go out and get after people. And so I started looking at the specialties. And for us at the time, our traffic unit was the specialty unit that got to travel the whole county and interact with like all the agencies. And they were involved in everything. Not only were they doing like speed details, DUI details, fatal accidents, but they were doing drug interdiction on the highways. They were working with our narcotics unit to do T-stops for them. And so that's kind of what I had my eye on, and ended up going for that. And I was a 2-year deputy. And I also was around the tactical guys, because I would have, you'd be on your squad and you'd run into tactical guys and see the tactical guys. And I knew that's where I wanted to go as well, like SWAT, and I wanted to get into a specialty. So year 2, I went after it. And it's funny because I tested for my first specialty, which was traffic. And all the old guys were telling me, you young buck, you're never going to get it. It goes to so-and-so because he's been here longer and he deserves it. And I was like, nah, man, I don't buy that mold. And I think that's bullshit. I'll outwork all you dudes. And so I just put my nose to the grind and I went after it. And lo and behold, I got assigned to traffic in it was at the end of my second year. I went into a specialty, which was kind of unheard of at the time. It was one of those tenure things, right? If you had tenure, that would prevail over the young hard workers sometimes.
Yeah.
So I went against the grind on that one, got on the specialty, got into traffic, and that I also got on our SWAT team that same year. That would have been 97.
Okay, that's cool. And so you were able to have that specialty and then have SWAT as well, because you guys, you don't have a full-time SWAT team, right?
No, ours is collateral duty.
Okay.
So yeah, it's part-time. We have a couple of full-time slots, but those are the leadership spots, and everything else is collateral.
Right. So you're working these collateral duties. You're doing what you got to do. You're working traffic and you're working SWAT. I mean, just everything you thought it would be and more, or were you burning the candle at both ends? What was happening there?
I was always going 100 miles an hour, but like I said, I loved it, man. I lived it and I breathed it. And I was one of those dudes that I would, like in traffic, I started getting interested in the narc side of the world and the gang stuff. So I was constantly educating myself on that. I was trying to be around as many of those dudes as I could to learn as much as I could. Like with the narcs, I would volunteer, like, hey, man, if you need a T-stop guy, I'm your dude. Just call me. I'll come out day or night. And, you start getting phone calls pretty soon. And of course, narcs, and I know from being a narc, man, if you can get a solid patrol guy or a solid uniform that you trust, that's not going to blow your cases and gets good T-stops for you and stuff. And so I kind of became one of those go-to guys for some of them. So they'd call me up and I'd put on my gear and I'd head out the door, even though I just got off a 12-hour shift, and I'd go do extra stuff. But again, I loved it. It was what I lived and I breathed. And I can tell you that looking back, I wouldn't have changed anything because I wouldn't be where I'm at. But I can tell you that my family made the biggest sacrifice during that time more than I did.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to ask. How'd your wife feel about that? That end of your 12-hour shift, you're going right back to 3 or 4 hours.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I married an absolute angel because as we're older now and we're coming towards the end of my career, we've had some pretty good, deep discussions that we've never had before. Mm-hmm. And it's because, like, I've told her stuff that she's never known about what I did and some of the things I was involved in because I just didn't want her to always worry about me. And she told me some of the dark, lonely nights that she had at home, taking care of the kids and without me being here and having to juggle everything and having to adjust schedules and having to adjust holidays and, just everything that goes along with that crap.
Right.
And so again, she carried much more of a burden than I did because I would grab my stuff and go, and she would be left holding the bag and maintaining the household.
And do you, and so you just had the one kiddo, or do you get more after?
No, yeah, we have 3. We have my oldest is a girl, the oldest daughter. I have a middle daughter, and my youngest is a son. So we have 3 total, all same wife and still married to her.
Nice. And and those of you that are listening, obviously you guys can kind of guess that the reason that he's mentioning that is that's not a common thing for some police officers. Sometimes it's 2 or 3
most.
Yeah, it's 2 or 3 divorces, 2 or 3 relationships, and step kids and all this other stuff. So it's awesome that you have that consistency with the one person. You found the right one from the get-go. And
oh man,
yeah.
Awesome. And I'll tell you, I give her all the credit because she did most of the work and she kept it all together. She's been kind of the rock, and I think that's what because I consider myself a warrior, and I think that's the key to success for any good warrior is you've got to have a good rock at home, and she held it together, and she knew how to do it. And that's why I got to go do the things I did, because she was holding it down here.
Mm. And so your kids are older now. I'm guessing they're in their 20s plus.
Yep.
And have they ever mentioned anything about how they missed you at birthday parties, or they missed you at soccer games, or they missed you, or anything like that? But they understood it.
Yeah. I think they got used to it, especially my oldest, right? She grew up with it. So
sure.
It's a weird thing because she was never nervous around cops when other kids would be, right? Because she's been exposed to it. She was hanging out with cops all the time.
They were always over for barbecues, or you were always over at somebody else's house for,
Right. Yeah. So she was used to it. What my oldest suffered from in that time of my career was my absolute rage because of all the shit that I was doing, going 100 miles an hour, and just being involved in some critical incidences and having partners killed and just death and mayhem and all the stuff that goes along with this job. And you don't even realize what it's doing to you. But my oldest daughter, she suffered my absolute, there's no other way to put it. I was a complete asshole probably my first 10 years of my career, just because I was so wrapped up. I was wrapped up in the career, in the life, and plus I had so much shit that I had been exposed to because I was what they refer to as a shit magnet. If it was happening,
Mm-hmm.
I was there. And, when you're in that, you don't see it because you're in the middle of a tornado and it all seems good to you because I don't think I know. Chaos was cool. Like I loved, that was my jam. I wanted to have chaos around me. That's where I operated best. If there was shooting, smoke, and crashes, and that was where I wanted to be, and that's where I was most focused. And so I think what happens is you start taking that chaos with you everywhere, but you don't see it because it looks normal to you, but you're just causing chaos for everyone around you.
Right. And then when somebody says, "Hey, we've got this thing going on," you're like, "That's not a big deal." It's
right.
life shattering or whatever for these other people, And
or when you're telling stories, dude, that's the worst because we become so numb to everything. And, you're sitting there eating a piece of pizza and you're like, yeah, so the dude's brains were hanging out, and I had to stuff him back in. Everybody there is like mortified. And you're like, what's wrong?
Yeah. Yeah. Because you can tell that same story at briefing or whatever around the other guys at work. The minute you're at home, you're around Christmas dinner or Thanksgiving or something like that, or you got guests over, or you're at church or something like that, and you're telling this story that you're just like, oh yeah, that reminds me of this thing that happened, and everybody's wide-eyed and mouths gaping open, and you're like, what are you doing? What are you talking about? What's the matter with you guys?
What's wrong?
Yeah. So you get to doing that, the daily grind in that 10 years. What you said, did you notice that was there and you said, hey, I need to do something about this? Or
no, I was completely happy. Like I said, that was my jam. That's where I wanted to be. It was, my wife and kids was the wake up call. When my wife told me, hey, your kids are afraid of you. And at times I'm afraid of you because like you just lose your shit for no reason. And like you completely lose your shit. And on us, like, and my wife would always tell me, don't talk to me like a suspect. And, that would kind of remind me like, oh, okay, I'm going into work mode. And so it was her because I mean, it's, we're married. We're going to be coming up on our 30th year married. And I would love to tell you that was all roses, but it wasn't. We were separated for a period. We almost got divorced. We've had some really rough patches, and it was in one of those rough patches that I realized like, I think, I think I had some divine intervention actually, because I realized I watched other dudes and I've watched them ruin their marriages and just one relationship after the other. And I talked to one of my old friends and he was like, dude, what I find is my first wife was my best wife and I'm always trying to replace her. And I messed that one up. And I think it was that talk combined with just, my wife letting me know like, hey, this is not cool anymore. That I realized I've got to change something because I don't want a second and a third, but like, I like this wife and I like this life and I don't want to jack that up. And
right.
I think I realized at that point as well that I probably was a little bit later than that, but I came to a realization in my career that this place, the office of the sheriff keeps trucking forward. It's a machine.
With or without
and
you.
when you leave, there's going to be some dudes that miss you for like a week or two. But instantly you don't have access to the building. Instantly you're not there anymore. And that's the things I thought about is like, fuck, when I'm done with all this, I know there's like one or two people that I'll probably stay in contact with, but I'm going to have a house and I don't want an empty house all by myself.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I heard, you got to think about your legacy. And the thing that I heard on legacy was that there's three, and I've mentioned this before on here, but there's three things that legacy is you're going to leave with it. People are they're either going to say, man, I'm glad that guy's gone, or they're going to say who, or they're going to say, man, I sure do miss that guy. Either way, You're not there, but I would prefer to be the last one. I'd rather be the one that, people's like, man, I sure miss that guy. Definitely don't want to be that one where they're saying, hey, Who are we talking about? I don't remember that guy. That's like,
right. Yeah.
that's the last one you want to be. But
Yeah.
so you mentioned that there are some solid up and downs, and there are some crazy stuff that happened to you. You watched or you knew about friends passing away and getting shot.
Mm-hmm.
You mind talking about some of that a little bit and kind of giving us a little bit of background on that?
In 2001, one of my coworkers and buddies, Jason Lopez, was shot and killed, and he's the first deputy that had been shot and killed in like forever at our agency. And so it was just a huge kick to the gut. I had FTO'd him. I knew his dad is still to this day a good friend of mine, knew his whole family. I mean, they were just a homegrown family. And so that one really hit me hard. And I actually, the night he got killed, our SWAT team got called out. The guy barricaded up and had a hostage after he shot Jason. And I had been drinking that night, and so I couldn't go. And from that point until probably about 2015. So we're talking 2001 to 2015-ish, 2014. I didn't drink because I was always worried that the call would come and I wouldn't be able to go again. And so, it had a profound effect on me. Losing Jason had a profound effect on the whole agency. It was just like I said, a huge kick to the gut. And so that was one of the ones that we had to go through and deal with together. Then in 2007, my buddy Tate, he was on the SWAT team with us. We have a collateral duty, but we also have a multi-agency. So we have the county holds command of the team, but we have city agencies throughout the county that are assigned as well. Uh-huh. And Tate was from one of the city agencies. We were doing some rappel drills at our facility at our main station, and I was on belay, he was on the ropes, and we really didn't have a belay because we were trying this new self-belaying system that was like all the new hype. And I was down at the bottom where I would be on belay, and he came off the roof and he took a full ride nonstop. So it just zipped and it didn't belay like it was supposed to. And so he hit the deck full speed right in front of me, and I grabbed him, and we did what we could, but he was in bad shape, and he ended up passing away as well, which was another, kick to the gut and another kind of wake up call, just, of how fast it can happen. And so those were two work related ones. And then I've at work, been in some shootings, and then even before then, when I was young, dude, growing up in where I grew up, I think I'd been shot at. I think I was 13. It was 12 or 13 the first time I got shot at and it was a gang thing, and I wasn't in a gang. I just grew up with these dudes, and it's weird because you grow up with people, they're your friends, and as you get older into your teens and stuff, some of them start associating with that shit, and it's a phenomenon. It just happens. Like, I'm guilty by association. So whether I'm in that gang or not, I hang out with so-and-so. And so if they see me, I'm with him, and there we go. We're getting shot at. And I've had critical incidents going since I was in my early teens.
Jeez. And so did that attribute to that first portion where you were saying that you were just an a-hole to your family and to your wife, and your kids were scared of you? Did that have an effect on that? I mean, all that stuff. I mean, did you have an opportunity to work through those things? I mean, you're seeing your friends pass away in front of you, or you feel that had you been able to be there, maybe Jason wouldn't have passed away had you not been drinking. Right. I mean, does that stuff weigh on you?
Oh, absolutely, man. And looking back now, because again, back then we're talking the 90s and the early 2000s. And those were the suck it up, buttercup, and keep pushing forward, so you didn't talk about it. You didn't, if you cried about it, it was just you and another dude over a bottle, and you would,
Mhm.
shed a few tears, and then you would wipe the tears and go back to work. And you would shut the fuck up, just keep going. And you didn't ask for help. You didn't, don't ever say you're going to counseling, man, because you get blackballed.
Right. Yeah.
And so it was a whole different culture back then. And so I do think all of those factors contributed, because I can tell you now, like one of my main focuses for my agency and for the people I work with is to make sure they're okay, to make sure that they are better when they leave than when we got them, rather than more damaged.
Mhm.
And we try and do everything we can to make sure when they have those critical incidences that we give them all the resources we can. The stuff is no longer taboo. I openly talk about with my people, going to my counselor, talking things out, and I talk to them about where I made mistakes and the mistakes I don't want them to make. And
Right.
So definitely all that stuff contributed. I bottled it up, and when you do that, it pokes its ugly head in other ways, man.
Yeah, that pressure kind of builds. It builds. And so what and so that was the majority of that, the stuff that happened with your family, or did it happen, were there other things that were kind of coming out?
Oh no, well, I mean, I was just, again, I was a hard charging dude. So I'm sure at work, well, I know at work it the rage was there too, but you use it in an effective manner, because
Yeah.
if a gangster would buck up on me and like, fuck you, cop, let's go. All right, let's go. And we get to work. And so I had no problem, going to fists and getting down if I had to. And that was all part of it, right?
Yeah.
It's just a way to release that rage. And I would just, you walk around as just, I don't know, man. You're just looking for the next dude. Like, all right, come on. I've been looking for the guy that's going to kill me my whole fucking life. Let's go.
Right.
And you're just seeking fights, and you're on a mission, and it's on like, it's pagan at a 10, and you're just always ready, super vigilant, hyper vigilant, and always in cop mode. Yeah. And what I didn't realize at the time is just how much that takes off your life if you just keep spinning that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah.
You don't realize, the damage that's being done or whatever. And you're just going after whatever you're going after for the time being. And,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I've had a couple of knee surgeries. So, with all that gear and all that stuff, your knees, your back, all that stuff suffers.
I don't know what you're talking about. No idea. Zero.
But the funny thing is, my first knee surgery, I had a great doc, man. He was awesome. But we're talking about my knee surgery, and he's like, dude, you really jacked your knee up. And he's like, you gotta, stop this and stop that. And, we're going to have to make these adjustments. And I'm like, whatever, man. And, I'll figure it out. And he's like, well, dude, you got to listen, or, you're going to really jack yourself up. And I'm like, doc, I really did not expect to live this long, bro. So, I've been going kind of hard, not thinking I'm going to make it this long. And I still don't know how long I'm going to live. And so I'm just using every part of my body that I can. But then you really get to the back end of your career. I'm like, son of a bitch, I should have taken it easy.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're doing SWAT, you're doing traffic. How long were you in traffic?
Oh man, let's see. So I was in traffic from 97 to 2000. And in 2000 is when I got recruited into narcs. And that's when I went into undercover. And it was a short stint in undercover, my first go, because I was in there 2000 into 2001. And me and my narc buddy that came in with me, we decided we're going to test for sergeant just for the experience.
Yeah.
And so that turned into, I was number one on the list. And so I got notified, hey, you're number one on the list. You'll be offered the position soon, because there was a position. And I was like, oh man, no, I'm turning it down. So I went into my narc sergeant at the time, great dude, and he's the guy that recruited me into narcs, because back then for us, you didn't really put in. They went and found you, and they would recruit you in, and you would get asked to come. And so he's the guy that recruited me in, and I went and sat down with him, and I said, "Hey, man, I screwed up. I tested high on the list, and they're going to offer me a position." And he's like, "Oh, that's great." And I said, "Yeah, but I'm turning it down." And he's like, "No, you're not." And I said, "No, yeah, I am, dude, because I'm having a blast here in narcs. You know, I love what I'm doing. I love the work. I love working for you." And he says, "No, you're not turning it down. You're going to take that position." And he talked some sense into me. What didn't seem like sense at the time, but ultimately was the best move I ever made, to start down the path I was going to go down. And he told me, "If you do not take this test, you're going to hate life here." And he said, "I'll do everything I can to not make your life fun." And I was like, okay. So I took the spot, man. And like I said, it was a good move. And he told me, he says, "You can always come back to these positions, and you can come back as a sergeant." And ultimately that's what ended up happening, is I came back years later to be the narc sergeant. So
yeah, that's all right. That's a pretty good deal, huh?
Yeah. So I was short stint in narcs, and then I promoted to sergeant. I went out to patrol, and as a sergeant, I was a sergeant for just under 10 years. And as a sergeant, I was a team leader on SWAT. I moved into a team leader position. On the patrol side of stuff, I did patrol for a little bit. And then I ended up going into being the training sergeant. And while I was the training sergeant, our local police academy, the director had left, went to another job. And so they asked me to come in and be the interim director. So I was the interim director for a while of our police academy, running the whole academy. And then that's when I got asked to come back to narcs as the sergeant. I moved back into narcs as the sergeant, and stayed in that position till that would have been about 2009. We had a new sheriff, and the new sheriff decided that he wanted to start a motor unit. And I had kind of gained a reputation to that point as the fix it guy, or the, like go start something and stand it up. And so they wanted to start a motor unit. So they called me in and they said, "You're coming out of narcs and you're going to stand up a motor unit." And I was like, all right. So I got voluntold to be a motor. Yeah. So I went to motor school, and just like everything else, man, when I get an assignment, I'm all in. And so went to motor school, completed motor school on my first go, and became basically the first motor officer for our county, and stood the unit up, and stayed in there until 2010. 2010, I promoted to lieutenant. And when I promoted to lieutenant, they put me in the position over our SWAT team, our anti-smuggling, and our narcotics squad. So I was back in the narc world, but as the lieutenant over that stuff.
Did that put you behind a desk now, or did you get to still continue to go out and play? And
no, I still lieutenant. That lieutenant position for us was probably 50-50 on a good day. 75-25 on a bad day, 75 being administrative and 25 operational. So I still got operational stuff. And then especially the smuggling stuff, because that was a time period from my book. And so I was very operational on the smuggling stuff. We were doing a lot of stuff out in the desert, a lot of operations. And so I still was able to go out and do cop stuff as a lieutenant.
Right. Now, does Pinal County, does that border up against the Mexican border?
It does not. Our closest point is about 65 miles from the U.S.-Mexico line, but we're very unique. Just quick demographics for the listeners. Our county is basically smashed right in between Phoenix and Tucson. So if you drive from Phoenix to Tucson or vice versa, you go right through our county. But what is unique about us is the southwest portion of our county, like the southwest corner, where it sits, is directly north of the U.S.-Mexico border by about 65 miles. And from the I-8, essentially, because the I-8 starts in our county and runs over to San Diego. From the I-8 south, is completely open desert, some Indian reservations. So you'll have some small Indian towns, but there's no major cities or anything like that. It's just completely open desert. So effectively, I-8 becomes the first form of civilization smugglers hit. So from the international boundary all the way up, they'll travel that desert. And again, you'll see that in the book, some of the stuff we're working, all open desert. And so it's really like the border is there rather than down south where it's at.
Right. And so you're talking about interdiction from drugs to people to just people crossing the border illegally.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's everything. We had, go ahead.
Everything you can think of, I guess, is what I was going to say.
Yeah. Yeah. We had, everything you can think of coming north, mainly dope and people, right? That's their two biggest commodities. Our state is controlled by the Sinaloa cartel and always has been. And so that's their two big things is bodies and dope and all flavors of dope, whether at the time, it was a lot of marijuana. That was one of their cash crops, meth, coke, heroin, now fentanyl.
Right.
And then everything going south. There's money going south. There's guns going south. There's ammunition going south. So yeah, it was a constant back and forth.
And so and like we talked about people, and we're talking about, whether it's just human trafficking, sex trafficking, whatever. And some of that is the payment for the drugs and stuff like that. But
right.
Were you getting more people or more drugs? What was the,
so when I first started working out there, like in the early 2000s, people was the main thing. Those were people routes. So you would have, human smuggling coming up through there. So there would be groups of like 20, 30 people that were being brought up by coyotes through the open desert on a 6-day hike. And as time went on, dope became the main commodity. And then we reached a point where actually the Sinaloans, they held operational control of that whole area out there in the routes, and they considered that land their land, and they didn't want bodies being smuggled up because it brought too much attention from Border Patrol. So they would make them exclusively dope routes. And we had some homicides out there in the middle of the desert where they would kill groups of immigrants to prove a point because they, basically, hey, we told you don't be on these routes. These are for other purposes. Mm-hmm. And they held pretty good control over what was on those routes, and it was mainly dope.
And when you're doing that stuff, what are you seeing? What are you looking for? The things that your average everyday person, if they're just, hey, I'm going to go from San Diego and I'm going to go to, let's say, Queens Creek. Queens Creek is in Pinal County, right?
Yep.
Okay. So let's say they're going to go for going through there. What are things people should be looking for either to keep themselves safe, or if they had the gumption to try to avoid? What would
that's a tough one, dude. Because like on I-8, the best thing to avoid trouble is to keep moving.
Is I-8.
Yeah,
I-8 is what you want to avoid.
Yeah, but I mean, the funny thing is this: what people wouldn't recognize, right? And it's funny because I heard this line, and it's so true that we live in a world that's cloaked in camouflage, and I think those of us in law enforcement, we kind of see through the camouflage and we see what the real world looks like. And that's what that was out there. And so anybody that's traveling those areas, the biggest thing is really just paying attention to what's going on around you. And honestly, like not stopping at rest stops. And if you do, pay attention and make sure they're populated rest stops. So there's a lot of people around, because there'd be a lot of stuff going on at rest stops. There'd be a lot of stuff going on just off the freeway. And people would see things all the time. And what's funny is when you ask people that see things going on, they're like, yeah, it looked weird, but I just didn't know that's your clue right there. Like, so if you see something and you're like, that does not make sense, that's right. So just get away from it. Right.
That's a clue. Right.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. But there's no clear I can't give anybody like bullet points of here's how smuggling is going on, or
Right.
here's how you have bad guys around you. You really have to pay attention to people's behaviors. You have to pay attention to your surroundings. And out there, out in the desert, man, it is desolate and lonely at times, but it's creepy how much goes on out there. I mean, we'd be still of the night, 2 a.m, sitting on a mountaintop, nobody around us. We're out there with all of our stuff looking for bad guys. And you have AK fire going off, and you're like, what the fuck is going on? The three or 400 meters away, you're hearing AK fire, and it's not at you. I mean, there's just something going on over there. And it could be that they just decided to let some rip that day, or there's a what we call a rip going on, and where somebody is ripping off drugs from somebody else. There's just all kinds of crazy stuff going on out there.
Right. That's crazy that, you would think that we have, I don't know, I can get political on us here, but, you'd think that we have a little bit, we are a sovereign nation and we get things under control. But, like you said, Sinaloa runs that area. And as much as you guys, you like to say, the, sheriff's department or the state police or whatever, there's a lot more of that, unfortunately.
Oh yeah. Well, and we held a good line, man. We put up a hell of a fight.
Sure.
And there's no doubt that the work that not just us, just, everybody that works that problem, they are truly holding a line out there, because if we just gave it up, it would be so much worse. But it's disheartening because, if, let's say, for instance, I need a pair of night vision, and I tell my boss, like, hey man, if I had night vision, it would really work out better in this situation and help me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, yeah, okay, cool. Get with procurement on that. Okay, procurement. Oh yeah, procurement says you have to put in a bid, but there has to be 3 bids, because it's X amount of dollars, and then we have to, assign it and blah blah blah. The cartel dude's like, I need night vision. I'm gonna go buy it, or I'm gonna steal it, or whatever. They just go get the shit they need.
Yeah.
They don't have the rules that the government has, and they're not playing by any set of rules. So, when I would say, okay, I know this guy is a bad guy and I know he needs to go to jail, we have a process that we have to go through to make that happen.
Mm-hmm.
On their side of the fence, when they say, oh, you know what, we have a guy that's counter to what we're doing, so we'll just kill him. And so they kill him and get him out of the way. And so it's the difference in operations that makes them have they're just more, I guess, more flexible
Ruthless.
to maneuver. Yeah. And the flexibility equals the ruthlessness. Yeah. And because they're not following rules, right? I mean, we're held to both like hard line rules, and then we have morality too. So we're operating under morality. So we can't say, oh, well, let's just go, we have a problem, or let's just go kill that problem. Right. We're operating under the justice system and morality and laws and everything else.
There's also that side of it where they live in that world. They're 24/7, that world, 365. Right. There's a point where we're going home. We go home, we go have weekends, we have soccer games, we have, whatever, vacations, things like that. Disney World, I don't know.
Yeah. That's the funny thing is the cartels plan movements on Border Patrol ships. So they know what shift change is. They know how long it takes a Border Patrol agent to travel from the station to the line. They know all that stuff, and they plan their movements around all of it. So to your point. Yeah.
Yeah. And because we're there doing a job. They're there doing a lifestyle, and it's a different thing. But our job is we're not there to get rich. They are, but we're not there to get rich. And I guess that's the difference. We're there for moral reasons, like you were saying. We're there for an ethical reason and a moral reason, a betterment of mankind. They're there to get rich, and that's their top thing they want to do. So you're going through all these things. You go from SWAT, and you go from traffic. You do interdiction. You are now a lieutenant. You're doing all these things. You're dealing with traffickers and stuff like that. And at some point, you decide that you're going to go even further than lieutenant, and you're going to go keep climbing that ladder. What
Yeah.
Was it just a natural progression, or was there some kind of forethought? Like, you know what? I'm here. Maybe I want to keep going. Or was it just like, nope, oh, that's open, I'll go for it, you know?
Well, actually, I had, as a lieutenant, I had started looking because I was not happy with the administration I was working for at the time, and this was pre my current sheriff, and so I had started looking around at becoming a chief of police somewhere. So I had looked at some small agencies, applied for a job, and my plan was to leave and to go run an agency of my own. And because I just, I felt like I was spinning my wheels, and while I was having fun, I did know that I wanted to do more. And I'll tell you, and I think this will resonate with some of the cops. There's been two main reasons that I've promoted throughout my career. And reason number one is when I look around, I'm like, there's no fucking way I'm working for that dude. Yeah. And so I would want to stay ahead of some of the idiots. And reason number two was because of the influence. And those interchange quite a bit, by the way. It's not always this is reason number one, this is reason number two. But the influence was another big thing for me, because I would see stuff and I'd be like, this is so stupid. Like, it doesn't make sense why we're doing it this way, or it doesn't make sense why this is so cumbersome. And so I knew that the higher I got, the more influence I would have on changing what I thought was stupid. And so that was kind of why I was working on progressing. And then this jump to this position, because I jumped 2 ranks. I went from lieutenant, I skipped captain, I skipped deputy chief, and became the second in command. And so this jump was honestly, in my opinion, I think it's just a God thing. The sheriff and I didn't know each other really. I knew who he was, but we weren't friends. He was a deputy. I was a lieutenant. The most interaction we had was when he tested for SWAT at one point. And that was just probably a 5-minute conversation. And then when he decided he was going to run for sheriff, he started poking around and just seeing who was who and who could serve, on his executive staff. And then as he won the primary, that's kind of when I got the call. So he wins a primary, and he's the heir apparent at that point, because winning the primary means that he beat out the Republican incumbent essentially. And we were Republican County at that point. So he was going to be the next sheriff just by the pure numbers. And so he called me up and said, hey, would you be interested in this position? And so again, keep in mind that I was looking around like, hey, I could go work here, run this place, run that place. But this was a perfect opportunity, because I knew what this spot entailed. This is 100% running operations for the entire agency. That's my function. Right. And he's the head of the agency, and I'm running it operationally.
And that's so your current sheriff now, right?
Yeah, that's my current sheriff. Yep. Okay. And this was 2016 when he wins the election. In 2017, we take office in these roles. And so to me, this is the highest promotable position in the agency. The only other way I could go any higher is to get elected as sheriff, which I have no interest in.
Yeah, that's too political, right?
Yeah. So highest promotable position I could get to, the most influence I could have on the agency to the positive. And so it was a no-brainer for me. I was like, yeah, man, I'm all in, because, it served every purpose that I was looking for.
Right. So you're there, how long, and you said that was 2016?
2016 and 2017, I moved into this role. So I've been in this role coming up on year 6.
Okay. So you're doing that, and you're now coming up on year 30 of your career, and you're getting ready to kind of wind it down, and you decide you're going to become a literary genius and write a book.
Yeah. If you read the first draft, you would know that's not true. No, yeah, I decided. So the funny thing is, and I kind of talked through this at the beginning of the book, the funny thing is you always say that shit, right? Like, you're joking around with your squad or whatever. You're doing surveillance in the middle of the night and like, man, I should write a book. we've done this crazy thing, that crazy thing.
Right.
And you always talk about that, but then you're like, nah, nobody's going to read that. Nobody cares about this stuff. And then you always, think like, who the hell wants to hear from me, man? I'm nobody.
Right.
And so there was a lot of that going on. So the thought was always there. And I knew I could write because I liked writing. I've always liked writing. I've written articles for SWAT magazine, for Skill Set.
Mm-hmm.
So I liked writing, and I knew I could do it. And then honestly, the sheriff, man, he's written 2 books now. And he told me, dude, you've got to write this stuff down. This is great stuff. Like, people would eat this up. They have no idea some of the stuff that you guys did. And I started thinking about it. I'm like, man, he's right. Like, and when he said, people have no idea about the things you've done, I thought, what better way to honor all the hard work that the men and women I worked alongside, what better way to honor all that than to put it in a book and talk about it and tell people, like, this is the good shit that the men and women around you in uniform are doing that you have no idea they're even doing.
Right.
And the fight that's going on that you don't even know is going on, and all the crap around you. And I remember in our smuggling days, I remember hitting cartel houses in $1 million neighborhoods, and neighbors coming out, and they're like, "Oh my God, what's going on?" And we're like, "Well, that's a cartel house, and so we're taking them to jail." And like, they were such nice people. Like, no, actually, they're not.
Just to your face, not in real life. Yeah, they had.
And
people
so that kind of yeah, that set in my mind that, man, you kind of know as a cop, people have no clue, but it's situations like that where you're like, people really have no understanding of what's going on right in front of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's kind of funny. You start looking at things from a different lens too. As the more you get into it, the more you're doing it, you are no longer those people who are like, wow, I had no idea. But you're like, well, I had an idea the whole time. I was just, what took me so long was proving it, because that's what we have to do. I mean, we can know something all day. It's the proving it's another story. So
that's exactly right.
So you get in and write this book, and you said, what exactly is it covering? Your whole career? Or is it just telling some nitty gritty stories? Or
so when I first started it, my thought process, I'll work everybody through how this came to be, and I keep looking down because I've got my own little copy here. Right. This is the weirdest part, dude. Seeing yourself on something, that's weird.
I can imagine. Yeah. Because I'm looking I'm looking over your shoulder, and I'm seeing the cover there of your shoulder.
So that thing. One of my good buddies, Scott, bought me that, and he's like, "Bro, you're going to do some book signings, and you're going to take this with you to promote yourself." And I'm like, "Dude, but it's so weird having me behind me."
Yeah.
And it's just, it's counterintuitive sometimes. But anyways, what I decided is I need to get some of these stories down. And so I started writing some of the stories, and you know how it is, man. The stories I was writing, essentially I'm writing a report, right? Because I'm just going back through my mind's eye, and I'm like, okay, we briefed, this is what we briefed about, boom, boom, boom. We talked about these things. This is kind of what you do during briefing. And I wanted to go through that too, because I wanted people to understand like what each day is like for a cop. Like, you don't just get up, go to work, and you're magically in cop world, right? It's a whole process.
Right.
And so I kind of went through that, and I kind of talked about the process. But anyways, I would go into an operation. So I'd start writing the operation from start to finish. But then I as I was doing that, and I was going through these operations, which was cool. And I mean, if you read the book, you'll see the operational part that I'm talking about when we get into the nitty gritty of stuff we did. As I was writing those, though, I was like, okay, but I've got to lay some groundwork for all of this stuff. People have to have an understanding of how this world works,
right,
before they read these stories. So then I thought, man, I have to go backwards now, and I have to start laying some groundwork. So I thought, well, how is it going to work? How are people going to view this white guy talking about Mexican culture? So I better talk about that. And, it's kind of the elephant in the room, the white dude talking about Mexican culture and Mexican cartels. Uh-huh. And so I said, okay, I've got to lay the groundwork of how I know the Mexican culture and why I can talk about it the way I'm talking about it, and have the knowledge I do. So I talked about my upbringing. I talked about, my high school years working in the fields and stuff around the migrants, and being just, in that culture. And so that's where I kind of start off. And I also go into, in my childhood, I go into the gang stuff a little bit, and how that world works, and what people don't understand about that world. Because again, there's one of my buddies is doing a double life for a double homicide, and he's a murderer. But that was my buddy growing up. We played soccer together, and that's what I viewed him as. He was my buddy.
Right.
He wasn't a murderer. He wasn't a gangster. He wasn't all that stuff. But in that world, you get wrapped up in that shit, and man, it's so easy to go from being a kid who plays soccer to a guy sitting in prison, and sitting there on a double life sentence.
Yeah, you totally. You can, and I don't mean to cut you off, but you can totally see somebody's this road that they had their choice, go left, go right, and they chose one direction, which now puts them where they're at, when they could have gone. And you saw them before that road, and you're looking back and you say, I see them there playing ball. We were friends. We were drinking soda together and eating pizza together and being kids or whatever. Yeah. And at some point they went left and I went right, and this is where we are. Yep. And it's just
and not only that, but I kind of go into the book a little bit and explain even further just the culture, because sometimes you get caught up in shit and you're not even trying to get caught up. Like I told you, I was with a buddy and you end up getting shot at. Well, if I would have been a gangster with a gun, I would have shot back, and who knows, I might have hit the dude and he didn't hit me. And then all of a sudden I'm facing a charge, and I never even wanted to, be in that situation that day. Shit just pops off, and all of a sudden, it's just a life altering event. And,
right.
So I kind of go through all of that in the childhood portion. And then I get into the cop years of my life, and I kind of discuss some of the stuff we've discussed, like where my thought process was, where I was aiming to go, how I maneuvered through that, and how I ended up in, doing the dope world and the gangs and all that stuff. And then I also talk about the Mexican cartel structure, just kind of how they're structured in our world anyways, how we deal with them, how they're structured, how they operate, their hierarchy. And then I also go into the narco culture a little bit, and their belief systems, and some of the like bastardized saints that they pray to, like Jesus Malverde and Santa Muerte, and some of that stuff. And I kind of line that out. And it's all from my perspective. It's from my perspective in the world that I'm operating in. But I know from being in this world for 30 years that is the world, right?
Sure,
of the cartels and of the gangs and stuff.
That's that subject matter expert we talked about at the very beginning.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So I lay all that groundwork out, and then we dive right into operations. So I want to give them a good understanding of the Mexican culture, my background, the cartels, their belief systems. And then I go into the operations, because I wanted them to understand, when they got into the operations, I wanted them to understand all the moving parts. It's not just cops and robbers. There's all this stuff involved. There's the cultures, there's the backgrounds, just all the stuff. Yeah.
Right. There's depending on however you're looking at it, it's one person's view on what is right and what is wrong. Right. And yeah, that's amazing. And so you put all that stuff in this book, and how many, you said that you look at the original rough draft of it. How many drafts did you go through?
Oh, dude,
just cleaning it up or fixing it or having your editor say, hey,
yeah, well, the thing is, and that's another piece is I've done this all myself, and by the grace of God, I've been introduced, and I've had a network of people that I've come to know and become friends with that helped me through this process. So I wrote it all, right? You get your first draft done, and then I think what most writers do is you go back and you look through, and then you're like, oh, that doesn't make sense, so I'm going to change that. And honestly, you can drive yourself crazy doing that shit, because you'll just constantly go back and I want to tweak this and I want to tweak that. And you could forever tweak stuff until you think it's perfect, but then you never think it's perfect. It's almost like golfing, right? You're just constantly chasing it. And so my first draft, I finished and I was like, yes, I'm done. I feel like it's all done. And then I went back through it and I was like, it's missing a few things. So I went back in, I added a few things that I'm talking about, like maybe tapping a little bit more on culture or hierarchy of the cartels, or, to try and, cause I'm trying to make it flow. And I teach quite a bit in the law enforcement realm as well. And I do some speaking. And so that flow is huge to me because I'm super bad about this. I critique people so bad. Like when I go to classes and stuff, if somebody gets up there with a shitty PowerPoint and has a shitty presentation, I'm like, bro. And nowadays I'll go up and I'll talk to them after and I'm like, hey bro, you mind if I give you some advice? And they're like, no. Like, so you went from this to this. It didn't really make sense, but then you covered it over here, but it was out of order, your flow, so I like psychoanalyze all this crap. And so I was doing that to myself. And I went back and I wanted it to flow right. My goal was somebody who knew nothing about anything I was talking about from cover to cover would be able to read it and understand, and it would move to the next subject and they would understand because they already learned from the first portion of the book. And so I wanted it to flow like that. And so to answer your question, that was a really long answer, but I think I ended up with, when we went to print, we were probably on draft number 8 from the original.
Wow.
And so I'll say probably half of those were me. And then once I found some awesome people, Lori out there, she knows. Lori helped me with editing, and they jumped into the book, and man, they did some awesome work, because what I did as a cop is I wrote a report, right? Essentially.
Right.
And so, I'm used to covering the who, what, when, where, why, how in chronological order, the facts, just the facts, blah, blah, blah. Right. And I tried to dress it up a little bit because I knew I was writing for a book. So I would use more descriptive language, and, it has great jury appeal. So, they took it and they massaged it even more, and they moved things around and moved chapters. Because that was one of the questions I first got, like, how married are you to this layout? And I'm like, check it out. I'm a cop trying to enter your world. And so you do your magic. I'll be fine with it. I'm not willing to give up the content, the story.
Yeah.
But I don't care how the story goes as long as it works. And so my editing team, my publishing team, they were all about the one that Lori, my main editor, she told me, she says, Matt, I want them to pick up your book, and I don't want them to want to put it down. I want them to keep wanting to read it. And I want them to be it's going to be that book where they pick it up, and pretty soon they're like, holy shit, I've been reading this for 3 hours. I got to go to bed. And so they helped get us there with that book, because I've had that comment over and over from people that dive into it. They're like, dude, I just couldn't stop, man. Cause like one story leads into another, and it's almost like watching a show. Right.
Yeah. That's cool. That's super cool. I had a similar thing when I didn't go to college till after I was a cop, and I'm sitting here, I had to write some papers, and I was writing it like a report, and I get it kicked back. I don't know how many times. And they're like, no, you can't write it like that. I said, what are you talking about? I've been writing like that for years. Yeah. You don't write a college paper like a police report. And so,
No. And so that was a huge learning curve for me, because think about it, dude, it's like 3 decades of this being pounded into how you have to write. Right. And you have to break outside of that mold. And I've always been a creative writer, because especially, when you're dealing with cartels and shit, and you're doing federal level cases, you have to creatively write, because you have to, like I said, it has to have some jury appeal. So you have to basically lay a story out for a jury, right, to get those big convictions and stuff. And so I kind of was used to the descriptive style, but it was different, man.
Yeah, because you're doing it to keep someone's attention so they can keep getting into it. Not you have to, because it holds somebody's life in the balance or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So you write this book, you get it out, and it just came out before Christmas here, 2022.
Mm-hmm.
And is it doing well? Are you seeing anything?
I think
numbers?
it's doing okay. My main goal when I released it was to hit some of those bestseller slots. When you do your launch, you're going for these little bestseller slots.
Yeah.
Because then it's one of those weird things in the book world, right? You can always be a best-selling author now. And
sure.
I'm not a New York Times best-selling author. That would be the ultimate, but nonetheless, you get these bestseller tabs, and so it's like little wins. So that's what I was going for, and I did hit bestseller in a few categories. So I was like, solid, I'm done, we're good, and that was my goal. And so since then, yeah, it's done well. It's out there, so it keeps getting love, and it's weird when you watch it. And you get caught almost like the stock market. You get caught watching your own trends on your book. And so you'll see days where, it'll get a bump and there's people getting it. And then it kind of spikes down and you're like, oh, I suck. And, then
it pops
it'll
back
get a little
up.
bump again. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
so
Depending on
it's an emotional.
The time frame and stuff.
Yeah. Exactly.
And so what's it called again?
It's called Interceptors, the Untold Fight Against the Mexican Cartel.
Interceptors. So
yeah,
go get that book. Interceptors.
Go get the book. Yeah.
And you can get it. I'm assuming you don't have to just go to your local bookstore. Amazon carries it, and anybody else, right?
Yeah, it's on all the online platforms and Kindle and all that stuff. Yeah,
that's cool. And you're working on getting an Audible for it.
Yes, I am working on that. That was something I didn't even think about, to be honest with you, because I was just so focused on getting it to print and getting something in my hand that was tangible.
Yeah.
So I got that done. And then once we launched, I had so many people like, dude, is it on Audible? I'm like, no, should I do that? And so then my editor, she sent me a message and she was like, there's a lot of people asking if it's on Audible, hint, hint. And I'm like, yes, I know, I'm working on it.
Yeah.
And so, that's a whole thing too. Cause then, it's just a whole thing to record and all that stuff. Cause I told you, I want to do it in my voice just because I know the stories and I know the inflections and everything, and I don't want any of that to get lost.
Right. No, and I think you did. I think you would have a great voice for it. I think it'd be as someone who listens to a lot of Audible. I go through a lot of books.
Right.
I think your voice would be awesome for it. It'd be great.
Right.
It's
appreciate
solid.
it.
It's good tone and I just I have a couple questions that I want to ask in regards to the stuff we've talked about here today.
Yep.
First one being, at what point did you see yourself kind of grow up? Like at what point in your early in your career that you said that was the kind of the tipping point for you to realize, okay, I'm no longer that, I'm now this. And this is where I have to start taking things seriously, or I have to, the big change from child to man, to adult.
I would say it was early on as a sergeant, I think, because as I was a pretty young sergeant, so I promoted
like 6 years,
in 2001. Right? Yeah, I started in 93 and promoted in 93. And keep in mind, I started in the jail. So I had that downtime in the jail. So from when I hit the road in 95 to 2001 was just under 6 years when I promoted. So I was, a young sergeant, and it was probably, it was probably around 2006, 2007. And especially when my buddy Tate died, I think that was a huge life-changing moment for me on a bunch of levels. But it was around that time frame, 06, 07, when I just started shifting a little bit. And I wouldn't say major shifts, but I just started shifting my thought process a little bit and started just focusing more on some of the stuff we talked about, what am I doing wrong? What am I doing right? And then it was about, it would have been about 2013 that I grew up Catholic. I went to church because that's what you do as a Catholic,
Sure.
whether you want to or not. And, my grandma,
Midnight
my
mass
grandma and my
everything else.
mom. Yeah. All of it, man. Catechism, all that stuff. I went to
Yep.
all the classes, did all this stuff. And then as I got into this career, I drifted away from church because I was disenchanted with the whole institution.
Mm-hmm.
And so got away from it. And then, about 13 is when I went back to church, but I went back to a non-denominational Christian church, through the invite of one of my undercover buddies, and met him there on a Sunday. And it was a funny conversation because I told my wife on I think it was a Friday or Saturday, like, hey, you want to go to church Sunday? And she's like, who the hell are you? And what have you done with my husband?
Alien abduction.
And so, yeah, right. But to be honest with you, my middle daughter had been asking me quite a bit, Daddy, can we go to church? Daddy, can we go to church? Yeah. Because I'm thinking of the Catholic Church, and I just was still disenchanted with that.
Right.
And so my buddy invites me to this church, and we walk in, and I was like, what the hell? Because we walk in, and there's like a live band playing. And, Catholic Church is like quiet. You don't yell. You don't, nothing.
There's an organ playing somewhere. And
yeah. Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah. So I walk into this, and there's a full-on rock concert going. And I'm like, what the fuck, dude? And he's like, well, this is worship. And I'm like, dude, this is like a concert. And he's like, oh, yeah, that's how we worship. So I'm like, okay. So that was, it was a culture shock for me. And that first time, though, I'll tell you, man, the pastor, I'm like looking around. I'm like, did you tell him like about me? And he's like, no, man, I didn't talk to him about you. I'm like, are you sure, dude? Because like everything he's saying, I feel like he's talking to me, man. And he's like, no, dude, no. And so I was hooked after that first time. And that is definitely where my life completely shifted for the better, because getting back to church was huge for me and huge for my life and my family. I mean, that was a definite, I know in my life that was a definite pivot point for the better. The other ones were just kind of minor adjustments that I can't put a finger on, but I know that one for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's awesome. That's great to hear. I mean, that's, we talk to a lot of people, and the younger folks, they're just like, a lot of them, they can't admit that, but you get somebody that's more, I don't know, tenured, or somebody that's just comfortable in who they are, and they know who they are, and they're confident in themselves. They can admit that, I don't have all the answers, and I know the Lord brought me through a lot of different stuff, and I owe him a lot. And so that's awesome to hear that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think it's important too, for, in my position as a leader, and the sheriff believes this as well. There's two key things for us in our leadership positions. A, that we should be unapologetic in our love for God, and B, that we should never shy away from just discussing our faults and discussing how to properly fix them, which means going to counseling, addressing the big elephant in the room for cops, which is all of the marriage, drinking, all that stuff that goes on because they don't properly deal with the stuff. And so, yeah, man, we're all about putting that out there. I'm not ashamed of my faith, because I don't want him to be ashamed of me when I get there.
Exactly.
And I'm not ashamed to tell people that I have screwed up a lot of stuff, and I don't want them to screw it up. I want them to have better. And so I want to show them, my mistakes, so that they don't make them again, even though a lot of them will still do it.
Right. And I agree with you. My big thing is I am so glad that he's very forgiving, because I have screwed up enough for everybody.
Yep. Yeah.
So my second question is, you mentioned this kind of before, that you see yourself as a warrior. What is your view? What is your definition of a warrior?
I think to me, like a warrior, or what I view myself as, is somebody who is just essentially willing to give up their life for right. And, because the fights are all different, right? When you talk about warrior, you could be talking about, let's go sword to sword, and we're going to fight to the death. But there's so many different levels of warrior. And so I think that's just it, man, that you're willing to go up to giving your life for what's right.
Right. Right. And the name of the podcast is the What's a Hero podcast, but I think you just defined that, what a hero is, in the definition of a warrior. And I think they're synonymous, much the way guardian can also be included in that. And, a lot of times I invite people on here and they say, well, I'm not a hero. I'm not a big hero, and
right.
They may not be physical warriors, but they are mental warriors, and they don't give up, and they're willing to give everything and sacrifice everything for other people, which is just what you said. It's that way that people are. And I've had dispatchers on here before who they're not going into the fray. They're not kicking in doors and taking a chance of getting shot or whatever by when they answer the phone. However, they're facing a lot of stuff. The same thing. Same thing of people who their career got cut short, but they still fight every day because of their injury or whatever. They still fight every day for other people, and they're still putting themselves out there for other people. And I think it measures up to that definition that you gave on warrior. So that's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very cool. So do you have any social media anybody can follow you on or get a hold of you or find out more about you and your book? And
Yep. Of course. I am on Instagram. Instagram is my main platform. I know it cross posts over to Facebook, but I really don't check my Facebook. I mainly do everything on Instagram. And so on Instagram, I am deputy_one-time. And then I have a website as well, that you can see all the stuff about the book and all that. And that's onetimenation.com. And it has everything that you want to know about me, my bio and all that, which is also, one of those weird things, writing a bio and then having somebody read it about you is even weirder.
Right. How many revisions do you have to go through that? Yeah.
I know. And it's so weird because you're trying to tell people about yourself without sounding so boastful. And so, you're trying to balance that because you're not, well, at least I'm not trying to come across as like this arrogant guy of like, look, all the shit I've done. You're just trying to explain to people like, hey, here's my pedigree and why I can talk about what I can talk about. Right.
Right. I thought about the same thing. I'm like, I started looking back and, you start having these poor me or whatever moments, and my wife, especially, she's awesome. And she just says, she goes, yeah, but you're this, and you've done this, and you've done this, and you're also doing this and this and this. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I didn't think about that. And you don't think about all the things that you've done, but she starts pointing it out. And I'm fine with her bringing it up, but don't ask me to talk about myself. You get into an interview, and they're like, so tell us about yourself. Oh, I'm nothing special.
I'm just some dude.
I'm a dude, and you feel weird talking about yourself, but I guess that's the name of the game. So, and
it is, man.
And you said you can find the book on Amazon, any kind
Amazon,
of, anywhere you want to buy a book. Platform?
All the book platforms. Yep. It's on all the book platforms. Amazon is one of the big ones that it sells on. And again, if they go to the website, there's links there to get to it. And if they go to my Instagram, if they follow me on Instagram, they'll find stuff there. There's links to it there as well. So yeah. And I try and my Instagram is, it's all over the place, man. I just try and have fun with it. And I try and give people a peek into my daily life. And of course, people don't really get to see the bad stuff. I share the bad stuff sometimes, but I try and keep it upbeat and just have fun. And I like making people laugh. I like keeping people happy and making them smile. And I like shooting full auto weapons. They'll find that out if they follow me.
That's cool. Yeah, I think I need to put more things on my Instagram too. I don't put much of anything. If I do, I'll put stuff about a podcast or whatever, and I'll take something for somebody else. But I agree. If we want to, motivate or inspire other people, you got to put something on there. You got to get it.
Well, and that's the weird thing, man, is that, I realized even in before this position, but you realize it in this position, that a lot of people are looking to you They're looking to you for guidance. They're looking to you for answers because you're in a position of leadership, not only in the agency, but in the community.
Yeah.
And so I realized that with my social media, and I get some great interaction. And of course, there's haters every once in a while that send me good messages like, you're a fucking pig and you should die, that kind of stuff. But I don't sweat that. I just block them and delete them
Right.
and move on to the good ones. And, but there's a lot of people that reach out and they're like, man, I was going through the same thing, or, hey, do you know anything about this? And you get to interact with people. And I've made some solid friends from social media that I never would have met in real life.
Yeah.
So it's a cool thing.
Yeah. There's some good folks. It's just by me having this podcast, there's some good people that I've met, and people that listen to it and they've reached out to me and like, hey, you should do this. That's a good idea. Thanks a lot. And, I would have never gotten to meet half the people that I've met, even though it is on the interwebs and whatnot, or I've met several in person because of this. So you look back 10 years ago, this wouldn't have been a thing. This wouldn't have been possible. Right. And so meeting people, getting to talk with you or getting to talk, hopefully get your boss on here at some point would be awesome. I've had, Lieutenant Colonel Grossman on here. I've had Buck Savage on here, Dave Smith, those guys, they're just awesome people. And I've never would have had the opportunity. And if it wasn't for this sort of thing. So, the Lord does bless us in different ways. So
that's right.
It's cool. So, well, Matt, I'm thoroughly enjoying our conversation today. And, I think that, I've got a book I have to go get now. And
right on. Well, tell me what you think about it.
Oh, absolutely. And then when we meet in person, because we're going to meet in person one day, we'll have you sign it, and we can go about that way. So,
yeah, for sure, man.
Absolutely. You have any final words for everybody out there you'd like to give?
Well, the only words I'll give is this, man. I know, because again, I've been doing this for 30 years and it's all ebbs and flows. And there's days where people think the sky is falling and the world is ending. And there's days where everything's rainbows and unicorns. And all I can tell you is this, just keep pushing forward and everything's going to be fine. We're all going to be good, and just enjoy life, man.
That's right. Very, very good. So, Matt, I appreciate you coming on, man. And I wish you the best, and I wish you great success with your book, sir.
Thanks. I appreciate that. All
right. Hey, you have a great night, great day, great rest of your career. And we'll see you the next time. You're welcome back. Like I said, welcome back anytime here.
Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Recording stopped.
All right, man. That was awesome.
Cool. Yeah. That went good, man.
Yeah. Thank you and Chief Matthew Thomas has left the building, so to speak. By doing that, what I'm going to start doing is I'm going to actually start having video as well as audio. I think I'm going to start putting all the episodes that I've recorded onto YouTube or whatever. With doing that, though, this last portion, like the video stops. I guess I could start the video again, but the video's already stopped, and it would be a totally different video. A lot of editing involved in that. But anyways, you got me thinking. But I do want to encourage you guys to pick up his book, check it out, go to his websites that he spoke about, onetimenation.com, check him out on Instagram, and go get his book. It sounds like a great read. And like I said, it's brand new out, and I have not even had a chance to go get it myself, but I intend to. With that being said, find us, the Was a Hero podcast, on all those fancy social media sites, Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. And what else is there? Oh, I'm on LinkedIn. Look for us. Check us out. Go to our website, the podcast itself, www.thewhatsaheropodcast.buzzsprout.com. You can find all our previous episodes plus links to your favorite podcast platform in which you can go there and you can download episodes from your favorite podcast platform such as iTunes or Spotify or wherever. When you do that, go on there and leave us a review. Leave a review on on whatever episode or leave us a review. It helps the algorithms and helps us get some notoriety, get some more play. They'll start pushing it towards other people, saying, hey, a lot of people are saying some good stuff about this. Leave us reviews. If you have a negative review and you think, hey, man, you guys sucked on this, or you can do better, let me know. I'm figuring this out as we go. I can use somebody who's going to be positive to let me know that I am sucking or whatever. Now I say somebody that can be positive about it. So if you're going to leave a negative review, leave a positive negative review. Okay. Nevertheless, I enjoy doing this. I appreciate you guys listening to it. And I thank you for all of the hard work that all of our heroes out there do, from our nurses, our teachers, our veterans, all of our law enforcement, firefighters, EMTs, all you guys, everybody out there that is doing this job for others that you don't even know, that you are there to make sure that people can sleep safely in their beds at night. It does not go unnoticed. And the more I do this job, the more I appreciate those people that I work with, because you are true heroes. You do embody heroes. You do embody being the warrior spirit. And you do the right thing. So I appreciate it, as do many, many other people. So thank you for that. If you do want to help yourself get in a little bit better shape, do some things, go check out Dose of Ethos. Go check those guys out in the bar at the top, or on the bar where you can use the code. You can use the code What's a Hero. They will take off 10% off your order. They'll give you workout programs. They have workout clothes. They have all sorts of different things. You remember I had a guest on here, Jarrett Morris. He's the CEO or the boss or the head guy or the owner, the founder, the top dog there of Dose of Ethos. He will help you get in better shape to be a better police officer. If you're starting to rookie being a police officer, you want to get in shape for the academy, they'll help you figure that out. If you've kind of lost shape and you want to get back into shape, get back into that fight and weight to make sure that you can maintain that warrior spirit physically, they'll help you do that. So check out Dose of Ethos, enter the code What's a Hero for 10% off. Check those guys out. So all those things just to say that you never know what's going to happen. You never know who's going to be able to speak into your life. And as I said before, it's a God thing. As I said at the beginning, and as Sam Welch said in his book, it's a God thing sometimes. So for Matthew Thomas, his deal was a God thing, to put him where he's at with what he's doing and give him the attitude and the abilities that he has to help other people and support other people and save other people. We thank you, sir. So for Matthew Thomas, I've been Ken Frownnfelter, and this has been the What's a Hero podcast. We are clear.